right, so I took a little break and let's see if I can continue on. So I am just kind of moving things around, kind of pushing things. I'm noticing over here, and I'll get an up close. You see a little clumping going on. See kind of where it's dark and light, and so I can really take a finger here and I can kind of move that, spread that clumping out a little bit with that and kind of cover some. And you'll notice that will happen on certain papers, this vellum, and some of the smoother stuff like Bristol Smooth, this will do that'll happen. So it's not a big deal. It's actually can be beneficial because you can really move things. But I'm going to go ahead and add a darker brown, and then it'll be blue, and then so we can try to get a little bit more of a uniform coverage here. This is kind of going to be the darkest area of the painting, is this kind of this shadow that the tree is creating. Okay, it's really like right in here. So the blue and the brown together, and you can kind of push those into each other. They're going to help me kind of get the dark here that I'm looking for. All right, and it starts to clump up, so I can see that, and I can kind of move it and push that to where I want it to go. All right. So not all papers will act this way. I don't notice this on pastel matte because pastel matte doesn't move the color like this. With pastel matte, I just have to keep building it. But with this, I can kind of get it to where I can move it around some, manipulate that. All right, so again, trying different papers gives you different types of blending effects that you have to kind of adapt. Right, you have to adapt to that. Okay, so all right, so let's keep going. I'm going to keep adding this brown. I'm looking at, if we look at here, really concentrating right about here. I'm trying to get those browns, those darks to stack up a little more. Okay, and everything is more or less a horizontal motion as far as how I move it. All right, again, I'm trying to imply water. Water has to sit nice and flat, horizontal flat. Okay, got a nice dark tree. Okay. All right, and then for the actual color of the water as it is getting hit by the sun, I'm kind of using these two, this kind of this pine green and this ochre, and kind of together. This is a Mungio. I believe these are both Mungio galleries, or one of these could be a Van Gogh. So I find that they're very close sometimes. But I like this kind of ochre to depict, you know, where the sun is actually hitting the water. You really get to see the sediment, or the underneath the surface of the water, what the sediment or the bottom of the river kind of looks like. And it's kind of this ochre, kind of greenish ochre color. Okay, I'm just going to kind of move it. You'll see I'll use my finger every once in a while to kind of soften it up, kind of change the value of that color. I talk about values a lot, very important. Make sure all these colors, as they sit next to each other, work with each other, right? So the strength of the color, how it pops, is important. Makes everything work together. Okay. All right, now right here we have something. We have this grass that's growing, and it's about right about here, looks like. So I'm going to add a dark here. I'm just going to use a blue, Prussian blue, and then of course on top, a brown on top. Okay, so I get a dark, nice deep dark there. And then we have grass. Now I'm going to bring in a little bit of a stronger green than what I used in the back. This is a nice, they call it a lime green, and it's working for back here. Okay, it's working back here. All right, but I don't want to use this same green here. I'm going to bring a different light green to this section, but I'm going to kind of bring in that green to right there. Okay, and then for the green, I'm going to try something a little different. I'm thinking this one. I believe this feels like a Neo Pastel. Okay, but right here there is this clump of grass that is sitting on top of the water, and it kind of grows up here. Now getting this color to sit on top of that can be a challenge. Lucky here that I can put in a little bit of pressure to get that color to sit on top of that ochre color that I just laid down, right? Because I want it to go on top. Right, and we have some, you can use this stick here to help create the illusion of reeds here. Now I know if this Neo Pastel is not going to do it, I know what will do it, and that will be a Sennelier or a Haya, because those brands are much softer and they'll be able to sit real nice right on top. Okay, but so far that's gonna be okay for now. Let's go over there. Now this over here on this side, we have a large area that's hitting a lot of sun, and it's the same color green as this. And you notice these two greens are different. Okay, this is a little bit stronger, a little bit lighter. This is good for back here, but this one is good for the front. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and just kind of put in this back green here, and it really comes out quite a bit actually into the water, kind of overhangs a little. And notice how I use the stick and how I apply, I'm using that whole side there to really put it in there, leaving some of the dark in there a little bit. Okay, you can see that, and then there's a reflection of the same green into the water right underneath it, right? Same green. So I'm going to take this and I'm just going to move it and try to just gently start adding in the reflection of that into the surface of the water. And I might have to take a few passes over here to really get it moving correctly, get enough of that down. All right, because this reflection here, the reflection of this is not going to be as strong as what is actually reflecting, right? The color here stronger than the color that is being reflected in the water, okay? It's the same color, it's just a little bit duller, all right? And so to make it duller, you put it in there and then you just kind of go over with your finger like that to kind of change that value somewhat. Well, now we're start working in the reflections into the water. So it's really, think it horizontal, okay? Hit with the finger to try to knock it back some. Right, and you can find those reflections here all throughout. Again, horizontal. Touch it with the finger to try to knock it back. Now we're starting to work on the surface of the water and how it reflects the light and the items and the things that are around it. Okay, and you see I'm trying to add some rippling, so I kind of leave some of the dark there in between and try to pretend like these are kind of waves or kind of movement itself in the water. Again, really important to really move it horizontal, okay? Don't want to slope that off much. It goes all the way down, and it's a little stronger here as it's closer to what the shoreline is, right? A little stronger there. Okay, and there seems to be a little bit of a land. And I'm going to bring in this lighter kind of beige here, this Neo Pastel. This is a soft stick, so this is going to go on nice and soft. Right here, a little bit of land comes out that's getting hit by the sun. You kind of see that, how that's working, okay? All right, and you can drop a little bit of a dark underneath that land. Make an edge there. Okay, but it just kind of pokes out right about there. Okay. And then of course back in here it's really dark, and I'm going to have to change the value or the brightness of this back piece because it's getting a lot of sun, and I don't think that bright is bright enough. So I'm going to go to step brighter, and I'm going to use this cream. I call it creme, but it's Neo Pastel cream. And it's a nice, strong, bright. It's perfect for this part back here that's just getting a lot of sun in the back part. Right, the sun's hitting heavy right in there. And it's hitting heavy right here. Okay, so this cream, that's a good one. It was not white, but it's a nice bright highlight. Okay. All right, so we start adding in some of the details. Now this highlight here, I need to bring a little bit of darkness right underneath that. And I need to bring this piece that overhangs, I feel like it needs a little bit more of a darker contrast there. Okay. There seems to be like a part of the earth or something there that is hanging off the edge, and I have been using this blue to indicate the very back part of the foliage back here, the back part, but I feel like I might have to go just a step lighter. So I'm trying to find the right one. Maybe this light gray will kind of help me there. Okay, just a little bit there, and then a darker dark right here. I want a stronger contrast right in that section, right where the dark and the light kind of come together. Okay, and we can use a brown too to help get a little bit of a darker. Okay, and it's these contrasts that you come up with that really bring about the attractiveness, or what draws the eye, right? What looks attractive to the eye. Now this is the far river bank, and I'm going to draw a dark mark there to indicate where the water stops, meets the land, okay? It's hard to see that in the reference photo. This is where you kind of have to fudge it a little bit and kind of make something up so that the artwork actually makes sense, right? But we're getting those reflections going. Okay. Same color, just slightly hit it with the finger to knock it. Changes the value of it. Okay. Same here. Now we have what was above water and what's being reflected into the water right below it. We got this nice green here, and I'm going to do the same thing and just kind of go horizontal and then touch it with the finger to just slightly change the strength of that. Okay. Leave some of the brown in there to act as moving water, right? Ripples, the water is moving. Okay, we can get those reflections starting to go right here. Water's so fun to do because it's moving. It's an organism, right? It's like an animal in itself, and there's movement to it. And so trying to get those ripples, those reflections right, kind of the surfaceness of water is always a fun challenge. Okay, so you start to see it kind of come together. All right, and there's different, like I can see different reflections happening in here. Okay, it's just kind of, remember, everything's a horizontal move in the water, right? Everything's kind of a horizontal. Right? Always finish that horizontal when you're depicting something like that in the water. Okay. Now I think I need a little bit of a deeper brown right here. And I'm just concentrating on the water. I could spend a lot of time here. And I probably will. I might add some more darks here, deeper darks here. Okay. Just got to get that color to sit on top. I have to put a little bit of pressure into and drop marks like that to help. Okay? It's always a good thing. Right? And then those reflections, really just think about the same color, but hit it with the finger. So it's a little bit subdued there. Right? And just kind of reinforce the color of the water in certain spots. Again, horizontal. Okay, that's all good. Now let's bring in some, I see some blue being reflected. Now it's not the same blue as this, it's a little bit deeper. Maybe some of these here, some of these blues. I'm just kind of looking it over here. I'm trying to find out, okay, where are those? Well, we got something kind of right here. Okay, a little bit of that sky right here is being reflected down into the water below it, right? You see how I just dropped that horizontal, fade it kind of into the water, kind of move down, right? And slowly and surely we will get a nice water feel to this piece as it's already starting to come alive in that sense. The water's starting to move. Okay, I do see some sky reflection kind of about right here. This is feels like a Van Gogh, but it's able to deposit on top of that brown okay. Right? Just a little bit of pressure. Right? The ripples get larger as the water gets closer to us, right? So the distance between those is going to increase. And a little bit in here. Again, move it, always move the water, always side to side. Sometimes even just going like this and just kind of moving everything like this really helps. Okay, just do this a bunch of times. Just take a stump and just do this. And really move things around. Okay, that'll help. All right, but we're going to keep going. Okay. We can always just add more color. All right, you can see I start holding everything in one hand there as I keep trying to get through this. Okay, we got a nice shadow here, so I got to really understand how that shadow is working. Right? We haven't added the foliage yet. Everything's going to come together when we start adding in the tree here. That's this distant tree. We're going to really change things when that goes in. And then the distant area back in here, remember I started using this creme to indicate, yeah, there's a piece of land or something back in here, part of the water that's really getting lit up. Okay, and you can even bring some of this in here. Okay, and just kind of feather that nice and soft. Right? Right, kind of soften those edges that the pastel makes. Okay. This is where the blending with the finger is more important than, or kind of the go-to instead of using a stump, because I can use my finger to really soften that out. All right. Okay. Build all these different reflections and colors and patterns I'm seeing. Okay. All right. So the water is starting to make sense, right? Okay. And remember, more pressure you put, the stronger the color becomes, right? More strength that color has. So sometimes you want that, sometimes you don't. Just depends where you have that. Okay. Yeah, so we're doing pretty good. Now let's add a different effect. Now let's bring in, so I'm going to kind of move these down. And let's kind of put them in a way that I can understand when I come back and get them. Okay, bring in a white. This is a Neo Pastel white, so that's a silver gray. I want to see what that looks like. It's kind of a light gray, but it looks really white. Here's the actual white of a Neo Pastel, this one, but this is a silver gray. So look right here, we got a lot of sun. These little sun sparkles, right? Hot sun's hitting that surface and really sparkling it up. And it's really just like that, okay? So I'm pushing in. I'm just going to start off with this silver gray and see if it's bright enough. Most likely I'll go to the white here, but this might do a lot of it for me. Right, and the Neo Pastel is such a nice brand to work with because it's soft, right? It sits on top of things, okay? And this silver gray seems to be a nice bright so far, okay? Now right in here, there seems to be a lot more, and it seems to kind of trying to get that sun sparkling effect on the surface of the water, right, to really come through here. But I like this because it sits right on top. This is not hard to do. I'm just dropping a mark and kind of pushing in. Okay, and again, if I need to, I can always do this. Help with, again, the surface of the water, the flatness of it. Okay, and then come back in again. Here, now here's what a white would do. Here's a white, same kind of, it's a Neo Pastel. And it's a little bit brighter, but kind of the same. But again, you're just dropping in. I feel like this one is a little bit better as far as getting it to sit there. Now, the ultimate bright would be that sun white. Okay, if I want to, I can always go to that. If I really want to pop that, I might do that. We'll see. After we put in the tree, I might tweak that a little. But for right now, this seems to be doing the job. Little pops here and there. Okay, where's that blue I was having? I think it was this one of these two. I think this one. Okay, bring in some more light, sky reflecting, bouncing off the surface there. And a bright pop of light that's really popping us in the face, right? That's what it feels like. Okay, every once in a while I might, again, move that water. Just taking the tip here and I'm just doing this. It just helps with creating that illusion, I think. Okay. All right, and if I want a little bit of a deeper shadow, I'll come back in with this Prussian blue again and just kind of help that, especially kind of at the edge where I know there's going to be a tree right above this that'll make this shadow make sense. Okay. And I might eventually bring in the sun white here. We'll see. It's something that'll be like a last minute item. And I'm going to take a little bit of blue and just kind of do this over the whole thing. Just again, get a sense of surface of the water. Okay. I don't necessarily see this in the reference, but I'm not a photographer, I'm an artist and I'm trying to depict something. So sometimes you gotta kind of add some things that you don't necessarily see. Just little things like that. Okay. So starting to look like water. Now, another thing that I recommend that you incorporate in your art making is to step back. Okay. Take a look at it from a distance. That helps. Squinting your eyes help. Right? Things that I do, sometimes just taking a break and coming looking at it even a half hour later, you'll notice things right away that you need to change. Sometimes taking a picture of it on your phone and then looking at your painting through the small screen on your phone, things will really pop out and you'll notice, oh, I need to change something that you don't necessarily see when you're kind of standing in front of it, you know. Those are just little tips here and there, getting through. Okay, so I think we're good there. I'm going to add just a little bit of a brown. Okay. Yeah, starting to pop. I think this reflection needs to be a little bit popped out a little bit more. Okay. Yeah, so it's good to take breaks because you see these things pop out when you're working on something in front of the easel. Sometimes a lot of things just don't appear, will appear to you, and you only will see that when you take a break, when you're looking at it with fresh eyes or a small screen, or looking at it from a distance, or with squinting your vision or blurring your vision. all of a sudden things will really start to appear to you that you couldn't see before. Okay? Starting to look like water. That's good. Again, I'm going to take this blue, I'm just going to drag very loose. Give me a little bit more of a watery surface feel. Okay? Not really putting pressure, I'm just letting it, the paper kind of pick it up and drop a little bit of blue there. Okay? It's very subtle changes, very subtle changes. Okay, now I feel like right in here I need to be a bit darker. So I'm going to come in with a little bit more pressure with this Prussian blue right in here. And I'm going to take that brown and go over the top to get that darker, because I want it a little darker right in that section right there. There we go, nice deep. I think over here we're pretty good to go. Work right into those edges. All right, and I'm kind of, I talk a lot, but I'm just speaking out loud what I'm thinking. Okay, that's basically why it's like this dude talks a lot. It's like, just be quiet. But I'm actually verbalizing what's going on in my head as far as what I'm thinking about, what I need to pay attention to. Okay, I just try to verbalize that. So I'm sorry if that annoys you, I guess. Well, I'm not sorry, but anyway, you get the idea. I'm trying to talk what I'm thinking. Okay. So that's pretty good. I think we're good there. Now let's take, let me see, one of these, maybe this. I'm going to come back to this far edge. I'm going to drop a little bit of a highlight where the edge kind of touches the land. It's just very faint. Okay. Just a very faint mark there. Okay. All right, we're making good progress. This is starting to really shape here. I like the way that's it looks very believable, like you have different types of soil or sediment or whatever coming through. So I'm not going to change that. I might add a little bit of green to some of the trees here. So I'm going to see what would be a good green for that. It can't be strong. It has to be faint. One of these faint greens here. I might just add a little bit of green just to see how that feels. It's already working, but I want just a little bit more. And I was using, what was I using? I think it was this blue, right? I think it was, to add that distant kind of foliage, vegetation, right? It's finding the right color for the right area, right? This blue is kind of the dark of the back area, okay? Think about that, the dark of the back area. We have different darks, right? We have different parts of the painting. We have the back part of the painting, which is kind of right here. That has a dark, and that dark is this blue. Okay, that's the dark back in there. That's the distant part, the backdrop. Okay, those values there all have to be in a similar range. And then we have what I call the middle section, which is kind of like right here, and that's kind of the middle dark. And that middle dark is that Prussian blue, typically, and a brown, typically. Okay. And then we have the foreground area, which is going to be the deepest, darkest, brightest, strongest here. Okay. So think of it in three parts: the backdrop, the middle, and the front. And each of these areas have a different intensity as far as it comes to the darks, and the colors you're using, the strength of the color that you're putting in that part. They all have to be working together. Right, so when I think about the green I'm adding, I can't use a strong green back there. Like I couldn't use this. It's too strong. If I were to put this green back in there, this area is then going to come forward. It's going to look weird. It's going to flatten out the entire image. Okay, so the value of green that I put back here has to go in line with the other values that are around it, if that makes sense. Okay. Right, and use a stump to really move, soften, change colors, or your fingers, or whatever you need to do to change those values, change those colors. Okay. I'm just adding a little green to some of those trees back in here. Now I think the color of the sky is actually perfect. I think it's light enough, and I think it works. It's not too blue, right? It's not strong blue, but it's blue, and it works. I think it works. I don't think I'm going to change that at all. I think I actually am going to put maybe a little bit more. Okay. So I want a little bit more foliage right in here, so I'm going to add some of this blue. Now it's pretty strong when I put it down. Okay. Pretty strong when I put it down, but then when I take my stump, go over it, and it changes the strength of that, and it gets it more to what's in line around that area, right? And it's coming off a little bit blue, so I'm going to take again this green and kind of tone it down to the right shade I think I'm looking for, and I think that's about right there. All right. These are just kind of things to be aware of in your artwork. Is how do the colors work with each other? Is everything working? Do the colors sit nice and work with each other in the same area, right? So I think about the painting in different sections, okay? If that makes sense. All right. Another thing to think about is texture. Right? The foreground area is going to be more highly textured, whereas the back is going to be kind of soft. The texture is going to be, the edges there are going to be softer edges, so the texture is softer, right? Okay, so texture is also a thing to think about, value. Now this part is even pushed back further, so I could take, I think it was one of these blues, might have been this one, or I was using it kind of to push that back a little bit more. Okay. And soften those textures out. Okay. Think about your painting in the sense of a three-dimensional space. Right? You don't want flat. So it's really about controlling those colors, figuring out the right darks for the right area, right? Okay, now we're going to work on the main tree here. So we're going to really change things. Just kind of going over some of these bigger branches here and kind of deepening them up. Okay, but we're going to add a lot of foliage, and we're going to change the color of that green. Okay, so let's put this back, and I'm going to clean the hands here, and then I'm going to stop the video here real quick, so hang on a sec.